Well, hello everyone. I'm Erin from the WRLA and we are now live. You'll have to excuse me. We do have a class operating in front of us. It's the level 1 estimating course. We are lucky enough that we are able to safely social distance while still offering our education courses. So welcome to today's Teachable Tuesday webinar, How to Create Content Your People Are Searching For, presented by Kelly Thibodeau of Squarely Social. During this webinar, you'll learn that blogging is a cornerstone of your content marketing strategy. It's the one place you'll be able to create long form content you own, and it's key for driving traffic to your website. The art of blogging is more than just writing content. It's about getting your mindset for your customer and understanding words you're searching for. It's not search engine optimization. It's about being found. Kelly has done a previous webinar for us, and it was on the top 10 tips for getting the most out of LinkedIn. To access any of our past webinars, please visit www.events/webinars and just scroll on down to the page where it says past webinars are hosted to check it out. Before we get started, and I'm not sure if everyone has heard, but we're unable to go live with the show this year. However, we are going forward with a revised version and we're calling it Showcase with a Twist. The new format is the next best thing to meeting in person with an innovative show format, and it combines print, app, Zoom, social media. If you're a supplier and have not yet heard of this great opportunity, contact us at the office. We will be more than happy to discuss the options. And if you're a dealer, stay posted on more details on product knowledge sessions, education, show specials, and so much more. Okay, now into business. Let's talk blogging and marketing strategy. As mentioned, I'm Erin and I'm your Member Services and Solutions Manager. And with me is Jess, who is your Trade Show and Events Manager. She will be taking after Kelly is done and handle all of the questions. Just a few quick housekeeping items. Everyone is muted, so if you have any questions, just use the chat function at the bottom of the screen to type in any questions during the webinar. And both myself and Jess will facilitate those questions at the end. Finally, the slides will be sent out and also be posted to our website. So who's presenting today's webinar? Well, that would be Kelly Thibodeau. Kelly is a technical writer turned digital marketer turned entrepreneur. She's founded Squarely Social in 2018 after working in the private sector for more than 25 years and has helped entrepreneurs, business professionals, and group communities learn how to connect with their audiences and show and grow using social media. She is an instructor in the digital and social media marketing certificate program at UW. Kelly's work has helped organizational leaders in traditionally conservative industries think differently about creating conversations in online channels. Kelly believes that customers want to do business with companies that show the relationship means as much as a transaction, and that curiosity, empathy, and integrity make you stand out in today's market. She's been on LinkedIn since 2006 and has had too many browser tabs open ever since. I'm not forwarding, but I will just forward through her contact information, or go ahead, Kelly, you can take it on from here.
Sounds good, Erin. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for being here. I'll get started by sharing my screen and then we can move on with the presentation. Okay. So we're going to talk a lot about blogging today and sort of give you some clues and information about how you can actually get found in search results. So this is usually a very interesting topic, and I know something people are interested in, and I feel like if you can walk away with one or two things that you can start to think differently about and apply to the work you're doing, then that's great. So the things we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about why blogs are good for business. Erin talked about this a little bit already, but we're also going to look at some search terminology. So there's definitely some language that goes along with search and being found. We're going to look at some tools as well. So you'll have a few ideas of some things you can use and places you can go. I'm really going to focus on free and low cost tools in this webinar. If anybody's interested in other types of paid platforms, you can certainly reach out to me. LinkedIn is a great way to get a hold of me, or I can provide other contact information. But I know sometimes just getting started doesn't mean that you have to go down the expensive route of having to invest in some kind of a tool. So we'll also talk about how to write an SEO-friendly blog post and a Q&A section at the end. The other thing that I want to say about online marketing is there's an art and a science to online marketing. And so we're going to look at both sides. You might be feeling at the end of this webinar like we talked a lot about science, but don't forget about the art. So the art comes in the creativity, it comes in the way that you structure content, and the science comes in knowing all of the sort of secret sauce in terms of how you get found in search. So why blogs? So I've got a few stats here. Sometimes I get questions from people about blogs, really? That's a lot of work. I'm not sure I see the value. And so I researched a few stats that I feel like will be some eye openers here. So 77% of internet users read blogs. I want you to think back and reflect to the last time you searched for something in Google. And I'm going to bet that most of the time, what you ended up reading was a blog post of some kind. So when you think about that kind of value, it allows a brand to talk about subjects that are relevant, but not necessarily directly about selling products or services like you might in other areas of your website. Next thing, so blogs have been rated as the 5th most trustworthy source for gathering online information. So from a trust perspective, right, we all know trust is really big in terms of really getting an engaged online audience and then also ideally turning them into long-term customers. Websites that have a blog are shown to have 434% more indexed pages. So what that means is how many more pages from that website are being cataloged through search. And so it's a really substantial way. And like Erin said, a cornerstone of your online marketing strategy. So it may feel like the thing you leave to the end, but there's a real advantage in incorporating that right from the very beginning. And that companies who blog get 97% more links to their websites. So that's another big factor in getting found in search is when other people link to your content. So the more content that you're creating, and we're going to talk a lot about quality content versus quantity of content, but just recognizing the overall opportunity that when you're helpful to your audience, they show it back by linking to your content. And the how-to headline is the 3rd most popular headline preference. So certainly for our members of WRLA, that is a really immediate opportunity that you can apply right away to a blogging strategy. And think about, again, the last time that you searched for something, was it about how to complete something, how to do something? What kind of information are you looking for? And how often is just framing it as how to some way that's incredibly helpful? The other piece of research that I wanted to bring into this conversation, for those that aren't aware, there's a tool called Google Trends. And the purpose of that tool is to show the popularity of search terms over a period of time. So for this graph, you'll notice that the range of interest goes from 0 to 100. So that's not the number of search terms, it's not the volume, it's a measure of the popularity of that search term. So when I looked at the term DIY as a search term, you can see that over time, so this is a 12-month graph over all the activity that's happened in Google, that has been entered as a search term in a wide range, and with a particular spike, of course, around COVID and people being at home and looking for things to do around their house. So this is what connects to getting found in search and understanding what people are searching for in a way that you can research what the popular sort of search terms are and what are getting higher frequency and lower frequency. But just to kind of set the stage, people are really looking for DIY content and how-to content. And so it's an incredible opportunity from a content marketing perspective. So blogging is about search, yes. blogging is also about being found. And although that may be the fine edge of a line, I want to really emphasize that it's not so much about the search engine as it is the person who's searching. So being found by the person who is searching. And just that distinction in terms of mindset. The reason that you're doing this isn't for isn't for the algorithm, it isn't for the engine, it's for the person who's searching. And those algorithms change and fluctuate to get the best content in front of the people who are looking for it. So here's a little bit of information about Google particularly, and we're mostly going to focus on Google today. It's not the only way that people search for content. People search in different search engines, but they also search on sites like Pinterest and Amazon and Facebook and lots of those others. But we're really going to focus on Google and search. So one of the ranking factors is page quality, and each page on a website is given a page quality ranking based on a few signals and factors. So first of all is website reputation. So is your website credible? Does it have a good reputation online? You know, when you think about things like click farms and bots and all that kind of stuff, right? Like there's certainly an opportunity to build a reputation of a website that isn't about standing out and suddenly, you know, having maybe a huge sort of influencer type space or even the number of traffic. It's really what is the reputation of that website online. The main content quality and amount. So what kind of content are you producing and what's the quality of that content? And there's a few ways that Google can tell that, as well as information about the person responsible for the website. So again, it doesn't mean you have to be an influencer in your niche, but it means like, are you generally known, right? So how else might Google know a little bit more about you or about the brand or the people who are creating that content? And then the last is something called expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, which was an algorithm update referred to as EAT. So really at the end of this, although signals change all the time, rankings change all the time, algorithms change every day. And I find that that can be really overwhelming for people. It's really more about creating long form, high quality content that people are looking for, thoroughly answering their question and focusing on that. And honestly, my belief is that those algorithm changes are really about getting better quality content in front of people who are looking for it. So as long as you focus on that, you almost future proof yourself from an algorithm perspective. So it's again about building trust, creating a reputable brand. And then the last piece in the line at the bottom in terms of backlinks, we'll talk about that a little bit. Backlinks are a term that's used in online marketing to refer to other websites that are linking to you. So that's sort of what that is intended to refer to. And backlinks can be a good signal for Google that if other people are linking to your content, then it must be good content. So SEO. SEO stands for search engine optimization. So, you know, that might be a term that you sort of hear a little bit about, sounds a little bit mysterious. We're going to really kind of dig into that. But the other thing to keep in mind with SEO is it's about quality and quantity. So although you might be thinking, I really want more traffic on my website, I want to drive more traffic on my website, think about that from a quality perspective. So you want to make sure that that traffic has some kind of impact or influence on your business. It doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to be buying more things. You need to determine what those success factors are. So if, as an example, people contacted you or they signed up for your email newsletter or you saw an increase in some of your social media followings, all those can be really good things to keep an eye on in terms of what's really the impact of that web traffic that's coming to your website. Because the other side of it is if you saw, let's say, an increase of, let's go big, let's say 100,000 page views a month, and there was no impact to your business, then what's the value of that traffic to your website, right? So again, you want to think about quality and quantity. And if I was to use a really broad example, if I, type the word Apple into Google, Google doesn't know if I'm looking for computers or if I'm looking for fruit. So you want to really think about that quality and quantity perspective when it comes to growing an audience online. And SEO is organic, which means unpaid. So those are things that are happening outside of paid search. Uh, Paid search has a different acronym, although slightly related, is SEM. So if you hear those two things used interchangeably, SEO is organic, SEM is paid search. So let's look at some technical definitions. And the first one is on-page SEO. So on-page SEO refers to anything that you're doing on your own website to increase your search engine results. The opposite of that is off-page SEO. So when we talked about backlinks, when we talked about getting people to link to your content, that would be an example of an off-page SEO. So for today, we're really going to focus on on-page SEO. The next term is keywords. So keywords are just a name to describe the terms that people enter into search. Next time you search for something, you're entering keywords. And brands try to understand more about what people are searching for online so that they can get their content seen. For content, we're going to talk about high quality long form content, ideally between 900 and 1300 words. I always get asked about like how long should my blog post be? And that's a general guideline. You want to make sure that you've really answered your searcher's question. And topic authority. So you want to write blogs regularly to become an established voice in your industry. So the two things that Google's really looking at are keywords and topic authority. So think about, sort of what are those 101 topics that you can start creating content around and get to be known as a voice in your industry for a certain subject. Interlinking refers to linking in between blog posts on your website, and it's another good signal to search. So if you're creating blog articles and linking between them, that's an indicator that there's related content, and it is another way that Google sort of determines the search quality of your content. And URL structure. So often when it comes to creating websites, we kind of leave the actual web address naming to the developers, but there's a really nice tie into search there. So an example is, I've got it there, is www.website.com/blog/blog-title. Whenever you can look at a page address in search and you can read it and understand it, and it's related to the blog content itself, that's also a good factor for search. So it's kind of one of those hidden things that you wouldn't think are nearly as connected, but if you have the opportunity to suggest what your page should be called, rather than leaving it to a whole bunch of numbers and letters or other symbols, it's a good indicator for search. Okay, so keywords. Like I said, keywords are the words that people search for. One-word keywords are called seed keywords. They're easier to rank for, but there's a lot more people creating content about that topic. So we call that competition. So there's a lot more competition in search for general high-level terms. So as an example, if we search for DIY projects in Google, you don't know what I'm looking for. Am I looking for ideas? Am I looking for tools? Am I looking for something for my bathroom, my backyard? There's so many different ways that that term could be applied to. So that's called a seed keyword. So even though there's two terms in there, it's still one general high level word. And then keywords that are made up of 3 or 4 are called long tail keywords. And they're harder to rank for a long tail keyword, but there's less competition. And it's also closer to what the person is actually searching for. So in this example, easy backyard DIY projects, I already know that my searcher is looking for something that's easy, that's applied to the backyard, and something that they can do themselves. So those couple of things really increase the likelihood that the person who's searching for that content actually wants to find it. Where if I just use DIY projects, I'm going to have to sift through a whole bunch of information to find the content that I'm actually looking for. So again, think about lower competition, fewer brands or people creating content around that topic, but higher quality in terms of the people who are looking for that content. So you want to stick to one long tail keyword for each blog article. So really focus on what's the main idea, what's the purpose of this blog post, and then connect that to the keyword. So you can start, the way that you can generate those ideas around long tail keywords is to start with a seed keyword when it comes to research. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to talk a little bit about some theory high level first, and then we're going to roll up our sleeves and get into some tools. Here's a visual explanation, and this is from, so SEMrush is a paid search tool, and they created this really nice graphic that I think explains it really well. So on The vertical axis, we've got search volume, low and high, and on the horizontal on the bottom, we've got conversion rate. So conversion is that action that you want somebody to take when they're on your website, and sometimes that refers to purchases. You can see by this graph that when somebody is searching for the word tomato plant, there's 22,000 average monthly searches for that. So that sounds great because it sounds like there's lots of people are talking about it. So I might want to talk about it too, right? But again, I don't know much about what somebody's thinking or looking for when they're searching for tomato plant. As we go further down that curve, when I go to when to plant tomatoes, that's 3,600 average monthly searches. So much less than tomato plant, but I know a little bit more about the kind of content somebody's looking for, and it's more likely that my content is going to get found for that keyword. Then if we go even further and we think about why are tomato plants turning yellow, has way fewer at 390 average monthly searches, but when somebody finds my content, I know that I'm answering their question, and it's more likely that they're going to take that action that I want them to. So it's a much higher conversion rate. So it's almost, it sounds a little bit backwards, but really getting into that long tail keyword is the way that you're going to see some results in search. The other thing that I'll say is that it takes time. So, like anything that you do that's unpaid, it takes time. So, I'm going to say expect about 6 to 12 months before you really start to see an impact of uh, these strategies and how it gets related to search. But, like anything, if you've got a website, you're doing SEO. So, you might as well start with a really good foundation and know that you're building towards that. So I want to invite you to open up a separate browser tab with me and notice some things. So whether you can use a separate browser tab in your window, or if you've got your phone with you, you could do this on your phone. I want you to go to Google right now and put how to build a deck into search. And I want you to take a look at the results and think to yourself, which ones do you think are best and why? And I want you to make a note of those and just jot it down. If you've got a piece of paper in front of you, that's great. If you've got a notes app open, just kind of put some ideas in there about why you think that one result is better than another. So just start to ask yourself those questions. Okay. And as you're doing that, let's talk about getting started. So, first thing, we talked a little bit about some science and we talked about some keywords. But the place to start is with your customers. So don't forget to tap into the conversations that are already happening about your brand and about your business and about your industry. And then we're going to talk about how that connects to keywords. So, first thing to think about is making a list of the problems that you solve for your customers. So, if you don't really know what that is, and you have a retail location, think about popular store items or order requests. And then what is it that's connected to those that is about helping people solve problems? The other thing that you can do is ask your sales rep, or if you're the ones talking to customers, start really actively listening to what they're saying and think about what kind of problems am I helping my customers solve? Talk to your sales rep, find out what kind of questions they're being asked all the time, and make note of those things because you know those are things that are top of mind for people who are coming into your business. So here's another couple of things that you can start to use as you're thinking about how you solve those problems. So Google itself gives you a little bit of a hint about what kind of things people are searching for. So in this screenshot, you can see I've got easy backyard projects. And when I type that into Google, I immediately get the drop down that tells me some other things that people are searching for related to that. So I've got DIY backyard ideas on a budget, or cheap backyard landscaping ideas, backyard ideas for small yards. So I'm starting to get some clues about how people are searching for related subjects. The other thing that you'll notice in the search engine results page is this people also ask section. So that taps you into high volume questions that people are asking all the time about that particular topic. So for easy backyard projects, I've got how can I make my yard look nice? What can I make in my backyard? How can I make my backyard more fun? What can you do with a small backyard? Because it's true that sometimes when you're really close to the business, you don't necessarily have the same mindset as somebody who's outside your business and is searching for different types of content. So, where you find that in search. So in this one, I've got backyard projects and I just click in the Google search box. You're going to see some other info data in here, and I'm going to tell you about that a little bit later. But for now, let's just focus on the words that are dropping down. So those are some clues about how people are searching for that. And as well, if I scroll down, here's the people also ask section. So take a look at that search engine results page and let that also guide your research when it comes to looking for keywords. The other thing you can do is check out the competition, and that's fair. So it's not with the idea that you're going to duplicate their content or talk about something that's exactly the same, but you want to know, you want to figure out how can you differentiate your brand and your content within the set that's already there. I've also heard it said that there's nothing that's new, right? It's all been done before. There's so much information. We're just drowning in all the information that's available to us online right now. So same thing, if I go back here to backyard projects, take a look and be curious and think about, oh, so for backyard projects, we've got this article about outstanding 1-day backyard projects online. You can kind of look to see if there's competitors that are creating content and really start to formulate an idea of how you're going to stand out and how your content complements the information that's already there. So a few things that you can think about. Can you take a different angle? Can you complete the story? Or is there an opportunity to tell it differently? Maybe somebody didn't do a great job of answering the question and you actually have some insider information that would be really helpful to that audience. That's something to know right from the very get-go before you're even starting to write content. And if you haven't figured it out by now, the science in being an online marketer is really about thinking like a researcher. So I know sometimes, when we sort of position this as creating content, all you want to do is sit down and write. But I'm going to tell you that if you leave these things until the end, you're going to end up rewriting whatever you wrote to begin with. So why not give yourself the information to get started in the best way possible? So use all these ideas. Find a way to record them or write them down, track them in a spreadsheet, put them in a document, some way that you're sort of creating this well of information that you can draw back on so that you're not necessarily starting from scratch every single time. Once you've started to collect those ideas, then you start entering them into some keyword research tools. And so we're going to look at that in a second. And that helps you generate lists of related keywords. So again, remember, you're blogging because you want to be found in search and you want to have that connection with using words and phrases people are searching for and making sure that your content gets found within that. So for as an example, with easy backyard projects, if I think of that as a seed keyword because it's very broad, some of the things that might come out of that are small backyard ideas or outdoor decorating ideas on a budget or backyard entertainment ideas. So not necessarily even using the same words, but finding some different phrasing as a result of the research that you're doing. The other thing to know before you get started, so we talked about search volume and competition, and they are termed a little bit differently within the tools. But it's that magic combination of high volume and low competition that offers an opportunity for you to create content. So keep that in mind as we go through these tools. Okay, so the first one that we're going to start with is Google Keyword Planner. And I'm not going to walk you through setting it up in this session. You'll have some links to it afterwards. But Google Keyword Planner is obviously Google's catalog of everything that's being entered into search. So it's not including other sources that might be outside of Google, but really focused on the search engine itself. And 95% of searches, I think, are done using Google. So it's a really great way to start. There is a free version and version that you get when you start doing search engine ads. You can access the free version. Google just makes it a little bit tricky to get through all the back doors to do it. So just know that you can access it for free, even though Google really makes it look like you can only do it as a paid tool. So it will start showing some really broad ranges and then the data gets more specific. So I have Google Keyword Planner open. Okay, so when I come here, you can see that I've entered the term. So under this Start with Keywords menu, I've entered the term backyard projects. And let's say that that's what I want to start creating a blog about, or content that I think might be a good kind of term to start researching. And so I can add as many keywords to this as I want to, but I'm going to start with one just to keep it easy. You can also use a domain as a filter. So if you have competition that you know is a large international brand that's creating a lot of content and you don't necessarily want to see it in the search results, you can filter that out. So I find I don't generally use that feature too often, but do know that it's there. And then you can see under results, that's some of the ideas that it's coming up with under here. So I've got backyard projects is the one that I entered. I've got backyard renovations, backyard remodel, paver patio design. So you can start to already get some really um, easy and specific ideas about what people are searching for, but also the kind of content that you can create. And then in these columns, you're seeing volume. So how many searches per month? That's what that means. Cost per click, you don't need to worry about that. That's only for paid search. Competition is a scale between 0 and 1. And usually it's also ranked like as low, medium, and high. So because I have access to the paid version, it's showing me a number. What you'll see in the free version are these average monthly searches and competition. So you want to look for that combination of high average monthly searches and low competition. So for example, backyard projects I'm seeing here has between 100 and 1,000 searches per month, so that's pretty good, but high competition. So it's probably not a great choice for a keyword for me to use in a blog post. But if I keep coming down here, I can see like this paver patio designs. Isn't that interesting? Average monthly searches of 10 to 100, so pretty low volume, but also really low competition and maybe a little bit too low volume. So maybe I want to keep looking and see if I can find more that have that combination. And if I'm even not seeing a good set within here, then I can keep using this as ideas to do more research. So as an example, backyard remodel, maybe I want to use that. I'm going to click get results, and it's going to show me even more keywords. So this is where you want to really keep a record of what you're doing and not necessarily have to do this every single time. But it takes about 3.5 hours to write a blog post, and probably about an hour of that is research, right? So again, really kind of getting curious about what people are looking for when it comes to SEO. The next tool we're going to look at is called Ubersuggest, and it's a digital marketer called Neil Patel who's created this tool. It's free. You may have to register, but it's free to register, and it also helps you understand keywords in search. So I'm going to bring it up here. Again, I've looked at backyard projects, so that's entered up at the top here, along with English in Canada. So it tells me some things about the keyword backyard projects. Search volume is 170 searches a month, so that's okay. Difficulty, that's the same thing as competition, just Ubersuggest calls it something a little bit different. So that's rated at 42, which is kind of a bit of a medium ranking. So I might want to look at something that's a little less. As well, it shows me this interest graph with mobile and desktop. And here's my ideas for more long tail keywords that might fit along with backyard projects. Ubersuggest also tells me who else is creating content about that particular topic. So it gives me a little bit more information, but it's another free tool that you can use in keyword research. And the third one that I want to talk about is called Keywords Everywhere. So there is a paid and a free version. The paid version is pretty affordable. It's about $10 for what they call 100,000 credits, or those are search terms. So this is the data that you may have noticed when I was searching in here. So when I did backyard projects, underneath the search, you're seeing information there that says volume 1,600 per month. CPC, remember that's cost per click, is 50 cents. So that's only if I'm doing paid, which I'm not. Competition is 1. So in Keyword Planner, it's a ranking between that starts at 0 and goes to 1. So the closer I get to 1, the higher the competition is. And it also gives me some information even about trends and when the popularity of that search term. So the other thing that it's doing is it's giving me information you can see along the right side of my browser window. So it's telling me trend data and also giving me that related keyword set. and the search volume. So if you use the free version of Google Keyword Planner, it will tell you these related keywords, but it doesn't give you the volume associated with it, which is really, really helpful information, because you can see maybe I decide that backyard projects, home hardware is something that I want to use as a keyword in a blog post. Well, there's only 10 searches per month. So probably not the best pick in here, where if I pick something that's even backyard ideas on a budget, that's a much higher volume. So that information is really helpful. And then it also gives me this people also search for. So as soon as I choose to download this into a spreadsheet type format, that's when there's sort of that credit factor that comes in based on how many terms I'm downloading. So with 100,000 credits, it takes a long time. That's 100,000 search terms that you could build into your bank. So in my mind, well worth it, a fairly minor investment for quite a helpful tool. And Google Search Console is the last one. So if you have a website already, this is when you might want to be thinking about Google Search Console. It's only for websites that you own. You can't actually use it for keyword research. The nice thing is that it shows which keywords are actually driving traffic to your website and how that's ranked. So it's a good thing to know about and something to be aware of. And if you have a website already, take a look at Google Search Console, set up an account, and start collecting that data about how keywords are driving traffic to your website. Okay, so let's talk about writing blog posts. Hopefully I haven't blown your minds too much on the science end of things. Let's get into a little bit of artistry now that we've sort of looked at keywords and we're ready to start thinking about writing. So when it comes to a strategy perspective around creating blogs, you want to think about pillar content. So what are those basic kind of 101 topics that your brand is credible for creating content around? So in my example, if we want to say DIY projects, maybe is one, then you can immediately envision all these different applications for that same search term, but on very specific things, right? So one might be DIY projects for the bathroom, one might be for the bedroom, one might be for the backyard, one might be easy DIY projects, one might be DIY projects you can do in a weekend. So that is an example of this sort of hub and spoke kind of a model or a diagram, so that the core is the 101 topic, the spokes all around are all the different ways that you could talk about that content. And you then can immediately envision linking in between each one of them. So it's a really great way to think about how you're going to start bringing content together. And rather than thinking, I'm just going to create content that happens to be top of mind in the moment, this is a way for you to start building that topic authority while incorporating those keyword practices that we talked about. So in terms of post length and format, again, longer blog posts really demonstrate that topic authority. So ideally between 900 and 1300 words. Could you blog with less? Yes, you absolutely can. You could blog, you could have a post that's 10,000 words and might take you 6 months to write, or you keep, redeveloping it and bringing out more detail. But ideally, starting point is between 900 and 1300 words. You want to provide enough information to thoroughly answer the question. So your searcher's question, remember that, and edit ruthlessly. So be really clear. Use some things like white space and bullets and subheadings and make it easy to read. If you've ever noticed, sometimes when you go to a blog post and you see nothing but a wall of text in front of you, it turns you right off immediately because you think, it's just cognitively, it's too much work to read this blog post. So I'm going to find something else. So remember, think about how people read online. And the fact is that they don't, right? So become a noticer of your own behavior online when it comes to content. Usually what happens is you might skim through a few subheadings, scan for a few keywords and bullets, and then make the decision whether you're going to invest the time in actually reading the content. So think that way too when you're creating the content. If you're just not sure or you want a second opinion, ask a friend or a colleague to read it before you're ready to publish. And then the other thing is to really build in that consistency. So create a publishing schedule and stick to it. If you say you're going to blog once a week, blog once a week. If that feels too aggressive, pull it back and blog once a month and get really good at that, and then increase the frequency rather than starting out with something that you can't commit to over the long term. So now let's talk about those keywords, right? We landed on the keyword that we wanted to focus on. So let's say easy DIY backyard projects. There are signals in terms of placement where you place those keywords within the blog post itself. Now, I will also say that it's really important that your content is natural and conversational and makes sense, right? So if you ever read a piece of content and you feel like it's clunky or awkward or repetitive, that may be because keywords are not being used effectively. However, it's important that you use it in the title of your blog post because that's a signal to Google that that's what this content is about. So you want to make sure if again, if your target keyword is easy DIY projects, then your title, your blog post title should include easy DIY projects because you want to make that easy. You also want to use it in the opening paragraph. So you're again reinforcing for the reader that they found the right information. And that keyword should also be used in at least one of the subheadings. So again, not in a way that doesn't fit naturally within the content, but in a way that adds to the quality of it. And then write the body of your blog post. So if it feels natural to use that as a reference within the text, then do that. And you also want to use the keyword once in the closing paragraph. So again, think structurally about that blog post and how you might naturally incorporate that into the content. So here's how to write powerful blog post titles. So you want to think about making your blog post title as enticing as possible. So when I asked you earlier to go into Google and search how to build a deck, think about your mindset. When you did that and you were judging the quality of those search results, those titles and descriptions are the things that are guiding your decision making. So most content management systems will pick up the title and then the first couple lines of your blog post and use that as a description. What now you're going to be able to do is to actually design that content so that it compels somebody to click on your content. So when you think about your blog post title, envision it in those Google search results and have that keyword at the very beginning. You want to keep it fairly short and conversational. So 8 to 14 words, really no more than that. And you might think about framing it. I gave you the data on how to from a blog post title. Some other things you could do is like 5 ways to do something or addressing your reader directly. So again, as you start searching for blog content and finding it in search results, notice what it is you're noticing and then ask yourself why and learn from that. So here's the titles and descriptions. So it's displayed in those organic search results page and it's unique to each page on your website. Again, like I said, Google will automatically pick it up, but why let that happen by default when you can write the content yourself? So in this example, the title is How to Build a Privacy Fence. And the description is this article will show you major pitfalls and costly mistakes when you're planning on how to build a fence. So I searched for how to build a fence, and all of those signals are reinforcing to me that I've found content that can answer my question and is going to be the most helpful. So titles and descriptions, usually those are things, so that doesn't get displayed in your blog content. It's something that goes into your content management system. So if you're using WordPress, Squarespace, um, any, Drupal, any of those other content management systems, it's a backend field that goes into the system. So you want to use that natural language that makes people curious and makes people want to know more about your content. Remember, you're writing this to be found. So you want to use your keyword in both and put the most important keywords first because online, we tend to scan down the left of the page to look for signals that this is content that is going to be helpful. And the description, describe what the searcher will be able to expect, learn, know, or do by reading the content. So answer their question. And if your blog post is 6 tips for um, building your next backyard project, then give them one of those tips in the description and make them curious to learn the rest of them. There are character limits with these that are important to know about. So with the title, you can only have 60 characters. It will cut off basically if you go to 61, and the description can be up to 300 characters long. So let's go back to Google and search for how to build a deck. And those notes that you wrote about which ones you thought were the highest quality, now you know why, right? So if I go back here to backyard projects, remember, I'm looking for the closest match to what I entered in search and the results that I see as I determine what is going to be the most helpful or the highest quality. So take a look at those search results from how to build a deck and see what now how you're reading those titles and descriptions. So remember, the title is what's underlined, and the description is the text that's displayed underneath. So, writing that content really effectively can be a really powerful way to get people to click on your content from search. And now you're connected to, because you've done your keyword research, you know what terms and words people are using, how popular those words are, and how many other brands are creating content about it. So you're really bringing some science into the art you're creating through your content. So start with an outline when it comes to blogging. So once you've identified that topic, organize the content with an outline and get yourself into this habit, because again, creating that shell will make it easier to fill it in, and it won't feel quite so cumbersome in creating content where you just sort of start with a blank page in front of you. So think about how you can design a bit of an outline. So you want to organize the content with an outline and use it to help you plan those keyword optimized headings and subheadings. So in that outline, I would even itemize what's the keyword, what's the title, what's the description, and then think about the headings you want to have in that blog post and the call to action at the end of that blog post. So it's going to make your writing faster. It's going to prevent you from going off in different directions, and it's going to keep your time really focused. The other thing you want to do is include some external links in your blog posts. So, anytime that you can link out to a credible third party content in a way that enhances the information that you're creating, that's helpful to your audience. It's also helpful to search. So, when you think about in this example, when you're planning to put where to put your fence post, make sure you call before you dig, right? That link should go somewhere that gives me more information about what that means or how to do it. So you want to avoid anything, any link that sounds like click here, learn more, read more. It's vague. It doesn't tell me what kind of content I'm going to land on when I click that link. So you want the closest connection to that. And also those link words, those underlined words, are something that Google can pick up as well. So when it comes to copywriting and writing copy that converts, so again, converts means it results in that action. You want to be helpful and connect with your audience. So really focus on being helpful as opposed to selling. Of course, if you have things that would be helpful in somebody completing whatever it is that you're creating content about, you might want to include that. But if you start the blog post in a way that reads like advertising, it's a turnoff. We all know what that feels like. So really focus on being more helpful than selling. You want to use that plain language that your customers can relate to. And so even if you're like a business to business brand, you want to make sure that any sort of jargon or acronyms are something that your audience understands. And I usually favor more to the side of not using them or using them with explanations rather than assuming that people already know. You want to stick to short, simple sentences, make it really readable, use that white space to break up those paragraphs of text and give it some breathing room so that it's not so overwhelming. You want to use those subheadings and bullets. So those are cues that help people scan information, and include a call to action. So at the end of it all, tell the reader what you want them to do. If you want them to subscribe to your newsletter, then ask them to do that. If you want them to follow you in social media, ask them to do that. And if you want them to buy something or take a look at, your sales page or online catalog, then ask them to do that too. So again, a few tips here using, oh, actually that one, we already just looked at that one. So let's move on. So those top 10 tips for getting the most out of your blogs. Number one, always focus on your customer and never mind the algorithm. It's definitely a factor. It's something you want to know about. So use the information about the algorithm to be more helpful to your customer. Number two, be helpful first. So focused on helping rather than selling. Number 3, tap into those conversations you're already having. If there are questions that you answer all the time, if there are things you find yourself explaining, maybe when you're going to your online networking events, you find you're always answering certain types of questions or sharing certain types of information, start to notice that and think about how you might be able to leverage that in your blog content. Number 4, remember, blogging is about search. So this isn't, blogging, as you know, takes time and money. So, and money, even in just money for the people who are writing it, even if you're not doing paid search. So you want to be really focused about that and know that the reason you're blogging is to be found in search. So although it may feel a little overwhelming to have to get into that researcher mode and do more of that homework on keywords, it's because you want to be found in search. Number 5, practice using keyword tools. Like, that's the way to get better at them, right? Is to just dig in there and try and practice and find a system that works for you. Number 6, you want to design your content to stand out in search. So what that means is use those titles and descriptions to stand out and to get closer to matching what people are entering into search and what they're finding in your content. Number 7, outline your blog post before you write it. So kind of think structurally how you can bring the blog post together and then fill in the details instead of starting with a blank page in front of you. Number 8, favor quality over quantity. So both on website traffic, also blog content that you're creating, is that you want to have a high quality and then have a better engaged audience rather than, you know, telling or sharing that you might have 10,000 page views a month, but not seeing any impact in your business. Think about the outcome of the result of the effort. Number 9, keep an eye on the competition. So you can do that in Google itself and just find out what people are creating. Again, not for you to think that you have to do the same, but to figure out how you're going to stand out. And number 10 is amplify your blog and social media and get people talking. So with your blog post, rather than putting out a post in, say, Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or anywhere else to say, we just published a blog post, go read it, pull out some of those facts and the little tidbits of information from the blog post and use that as a social media post. So in your, 10 ways to do the next backyard DIY project, tell me what one of those ways are, and then that's going to make me more curious to learn what the other 9 are. So that's where you can really get some longevity in creating that long form content, and likely, I'm going to say, getting between 3 to 6 social media posts out of every blog post that you're writing. So those are some things to think about as you're practicing this and getting into more of a habit of blogging. And like I said, if anybody wants to reach me, you can certainly do that through my website or on LinkedIn and Twitter. So
thank you so much, Kelly. That was amazing. My brain's actually a little swimming a little bit now. I had no idea about all those stats that are drifting behind when I search for my DIY projects.
right.
So my first of all, thank you. And just to remind everybody, to your questions, use the chat function on there, and I'm watching it, and so is Erin.
Great.
The first question is actually it's a question just out of me. Do you think you need to be a writer to do this kind of stuff? Because I can say I'm sure many of our attendees are probably like, whoa, 900, even I feel like, 900 words, that sounds like a lot. Do you have any tips to sort of, get going, especially when some of our members are on limited resources? It's a team of one doing marketing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's where you figure out what's the publishing schedule you can really stick to and where can you create that long form content. So to answer your question, do you need to be a writer? Yes. But having said that, if you can frame something in 6 ways to do something or 10 ways to do something, that's already giving you some structure that's going to allow you to build out that content. So it's not like you're starting with nothing and then suddenly feeling you have to fill all this space, right? So think about how the structure can help you provide that detail without it feeling too overwhelming.
Oh, that's great. So then how often then, if you are getting started, do you recommend blogging then? Like if you're just getting started, is it is it once a week? Is it once a month? Is it building that calendar out to sort of to ramp yourself up to more?
Yeah. So, I mean, part of the answer is the famous marketing answer of it depends. And the reason that it depends is because it depends what your objectives are. So if you just want to start creating content that is going to get you found in search, then I would say like start on the conservative side rather than being too aggressive to begin with. So maybe it's once a month and you're building out that calendar, right? But integrate it into your overall marketing calendar if you're looking at whether it's Instagram content, Facebook content. So thinking about how you can get the most out of that long form content that you're creating.
So some of our members with the teams of one may not have total direct contact. Do you think that, communicating with the staff that are in direct contact with customers, having those regular things, working on the floor, or even would you even recommend asking staff to propose topics that they're hearing all the time, or?
Yeah, I don't know that I would ask them to propose topics. I would more frame it as what are the things you're talking about all the time, or yeah. So even if it's a call center environment, that's a really rich source of information to find out what those questions are. Yeah.
Okay. So one question we do have, and it's actually one of the questions I wrote down too, is about paid searches, and also things like getting credits from things like Google to advertise. Are these things worth it? Do you think it's, are those the same things, or are they worth investing in?
Yeah.
Or
So
it depends.
yeah, well, I mean, paid search is something that I feel like gets a little bit of shiny object syndrome because it feels like something that's just going to like magically make everything better. And that's not necessarily the case. My experience is that if you focus on one, you're missing opportunity with the other, right? Because when somebody sees your search ad and they go to your website, they need to get some confirmation in their brain that they landed in a good place and the right place. And with the Google Ads credit, it used to be fairly easy to use that $10,000, but it's getting harder and harder because now Google has put in parameters around certain keywords, certain types of targeting that has to like apply to that grant that you can get through Google Ads.
Okay.
So yeah, and sometimes you'll get like even with say something like Squarespace or WordPress, you'll get like $100 credit to Google Ads.
Yes.
$100 isn't going to take you very far, right?
Okay.
Like, so it's really less of a draw than you might kind of initially think that it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like results from these things and being patient, how long do you think it should take for people to see results from their SEO?
Yeah. So for SEO, I'm going to say like 6 to 12 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But you can also use a tool like Uber suggests to put your own website in it and see what kind of keywords you're ranking for.
Okay.
So,
okay. I was going to also ask one more question about guest blogging. Is that something you would recommend doing, is bringing in outside writers to guest blog for you? Or is that sort of taking away from the voice that you're trying to create?
Yeah, so guest blogging would be one of those off-page SEO tactics where you're then getting some more interest by almost tapping into another audience and having that person guest blog for you. So yeah, it can be really effective and a nice thing to kind of, you can give them a byline right in the article and then give them some social content to promote it. And now you're getting your audience in front of more people and really also taking advantage of that trust factor because that person has a trusted audience that if they're talking about your brand, then that's going to mean something to their audience.
Okay, well, that's great. Oh, well, we're just hitting the 1:30 mark.
Oh,
Kelly, I want to thank you so much. It was perfect timing. I don't think we have any more questions here. Just to let everybody know, we did record this. We will be sending you out a link along with Kelly's information. Our next session, coincidentally, is November 17th, and it's actually about creating a holiday marketing campaign, which kind of ties in nicely to themes and things like that. And Kelly, just before we got on, had also agreed she's going to help host one of our education classes during our showcase weeks in January. So we're excited to hear what Kelly is going to do for our 2 weeks of show stuff from a distance and stuff like that. And we're looking forward to talking to you again. So thank you so much, Kelly, for your time. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.